everybody, Mike Reese here. This is actually just a response video to Richard Clark, and his YouTube channel is Richard Clark Ninja. First off, Richard, I respect the junk out of your personal views. And that's the whole thing about it. It's your personal point of view, and no one's ever going to be able to take that away from you. And that's the best thing about this. And I think that's the thing about a lot about the controversy when it comes to martial arts, is it's such a personal point of view. It's such a personal journey that a lot of people want to say this won't work, that won't work. But sometimes some people aren't going into this schools and dojos anymore. They're not going in for the same reasons they used to anymore. Some people would. It used to be the highest percentage of people were going in for self-defense. That isn't the case anymore. Now, people are going to argue and probably say it still is, but if that's the case, then why aren't they just going, why aren't they going to a self-defense school? There's more schools out there that are offering just straight up self-defense, like seminars or classes that are only so long, and they're actually teaching the very applicable and very quick and simple to use close quarters combat styled hand-to-hand techniques, as well as learning how to use your environment and modified weapons and improvised weapons, as well as also using weapons. So they just need to find those. They don't need to go to a dojo for that. You don't need to go to those kind of schools for that anymore, because we're like specializing now. Like, things are cutting down to where you can specialize in this stuff and find people who are teaching in these specialized ways. Now, the only thing I'm going to really respond to, because a lot of stuff that you put into your video, you had a long video, so a lot of stuff that you put a lot of it was a personal preference and a personal point of view of what you saw. But one of the things that you kind of went at was, how mixed martial artists kind of come off. And for the most part, there is something behind that. Some of these guys do come off very arrogant, egotistical, and overly, arrogant, and it's at times. But from the dojos I've been to, the schools I've actually gone to, the people I've talked to, and even on forums, the traditional world is just the same. And even when I was a kid growing up, when you had these masters, they're not really humble people. They want to be called master. They want you to bow to them. And of course, people say it's a sign of respect. It's like this, yes, but I can understand culturally. If I was in Japan, a bow is like a handshake. So that's fine. I'm down. I'm okay with that. But I'm in America, and I would prefer not to have to bow if I don't need to, if I don't want to. But I understand it was a respect thing, and I did it as a kid, and I did it and I do it even if I was to go to another person's school. I'll do it out of respect for that person's school. But no way in the world do I call any of these guys master. And a lot of them see me as disrespectful, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful. It's more of, I will still say yes sir, but that's just a part of me that military mindset, and also, in my opinion, a respectful mindset to someone that is higher ranked or a older individual. I'll say yes sir, no sir. But at the same time, and I'm going to respect what they know, and I'm not going to just go, well, that's just too bad. Obviously, you're just too old to understand where I come from. That it's disrespectful in that way, sure. But you also got to look at a lot of these martial artists, okay? A lot of these mixed martial artists do come from actual martial arts schools. A lot of these guys have Brazilian Jiu-jitsu backgrounds. That's still, if you really want to talk about, now, if you want to say it's not traditional because it's not an old art or this, that, or the other, it's still pretty old, and it comes from judo and jiu-jitsu from Japan. Slightly modified form of it, but still, it's still considered a traditional thing. They still have belts, they still have ranking, they still have all this stuff. They still have testings, they still have all that stuff that a regular school would have, and they still bow at the mat. Some of them do. I don't know, not all of them, obviously, but there's some that still bow at the mat. But a lot of times it's just a handshake, and they respect one another, and they hold each other in that regard. And the Gracies and Machados still teach respect and loyalty. They still teach the core values of what a lot of martial arts schools teach. So to say that they're not traditional, that's kind of a misnomer, because there's also a lot of guys that are in there that have backgrounds in Shotokan, Kyokushin, Taekwondo. They have backgrounds and things. So to say that these guys are just out there to make a name for themselves and things, it's kind of like how you were saying you were in a bad state. You were in a bad place and you were bullied a lot. And you talked about gangs a little bit, how these kids get into this stuff. A lot of times kids get into gangs because they have nowhere to go. They feel like they have no family, they have no one loving them. They just don't feel like there's anything out there for them. So they fall into something that feels like a family, that feels like it's going to lift them up. And they fall into these things, and that's just unfortunate. I've worked with juveniles, I've worked with kids that have fallen into gangs, and if you go into their files, a lot of the times you'll find the same similarities. It's unfortunate that they fall into these things, because they also fall into those hard times. They fall into, they've lived in bad areas, and that's just how they survived. So we have that aspect. But now we got to talk about the people who do live in these bad areas, or even these kids that were gang kids that started going to like boxing gyms. They don't bow, they don't do all that stuff, but they go into boxing gyms to learn something, and it gives them a thing. And what do? They get in the ring to fight. I do not put anyone down from boxing. I don't put anyone down for wrestling, because people still have to strive very hard and work very intensely on their skills and their skill sets for those sports and for those activities. And these kids are able to do that. Mixed martial arts has become that way for martial artists. Not everybody goes into these schools wanting to wear a gi, wanting to, bow before a guy that calls himself a master, who's never been in a fist fight, who's just giving you theory of something that maybe might work, and he possibly could have done it. You don't even know. There's a lot of bogus guys out there, and the best, mixed martial arts, that you can say that you're a mixed martial artist or something like that, but you're going to have to really put it to the test. You're going to actually have to step in the cage with someone, or you're going to have to step on the mat with someone and really demonstrate it. You're going to have to show your stuff. And that's how they can kind of cut away at some of these things, because there's a lot of people out there spreading a lot of fraudulent things, and they're really keep buying into their own stuff. They're drinking their own Kool-Aid when it comes to some of this stuff. And that's sad, because it's leading a lot of people astray. Your intentions are really good, and your heart's really, I love your honesty, and your heart's really big for this, and your passion for martial arts is very large, and it's because you grew up with, that was your thing, the traditional way. The traditional was for me too. When people tell me Aikido doesn't work, I just have to shrug them off and say, okay, if you say so. And I said, because it hasn't been in the ring. And they say, well, you can attack me if you like and see if I can. And when they end up on their back, they kind of realize, oh, wait. And it's like, yeah, because there's certain moves you can't use in MMA. You can't do a wrist lock. You can't do any type of finger holds. You can't do any type of, you can't attack the throat unless you're doing a choke or a hold. You can't hit it. You can't strike at it. You can't come up over the top and clothesline them with it. Now there's other things that people use though. Now you got to also understand, mixed martial arts is now incorporated. There's people coming out of the woodwork, and some of these guys are champions, and they are traditional guys. They've had traditional training. But for the most part, I'm going to have to kind of slow you down on the fact that that's what they're all like. And yeah, some of these guys have egos and stuff like that, because it's a sport. When you deal with sports, you're dealing with egos. When you're dealing with anyone who's getting paid to do something, you eventually start buying into the hype of what the media has done. They might come in humble as pie, and then come out, and then go out of the game completely looking arrogant and totally horrible. And it's because of because they got into a life and media kind of pushed their ego up this way. They bought into it and forgot who they were, and it became this whole thing. We can't just allow the media also to focus our attention of what some people are. And we can't also take what some people go to an MMA gym and then all of a sudden they start running around with running their mouth. That's not everybody. And that's not all of them. And that's just a fact. Now, a lot of them are going to be very opinionated, but you're opinionated about the traditional martial arts. They're going to be opinionated on their side as well because they believe what they believe because they see what they've seen and they have felt what they've felt, so they know it. In their heart, they know it. So they're just as passionate about what they do and how hard they work. And they work really hard. It's not just physical conditioning. These guys work hard. Now, you can't always blame just them either. Some of the coaches out there, and I'm not gonna like pinpoint people, but there are coaches in these MMA gyms that they don't know a thing about fighting. They don't know anything. But yet they're still considered coaches of MMA, so they're just producing bad people, and they're producing sloppy fighters. But yet, because of sheer power or sheer maybe tenacity or ability, just natural athleticism, this person ends up becoming a better, getting into the high ranks. He gets scouted easy, and boom, now he's in. You can't always fault these people for the things that they're not learning. It's the same thing that we can't do for these people that are wearing gis or saying they're karate guys, and they come out and they're just learning from the people that they learn from. And you've got to find that there's a source somewhere down the line that got watered down and became ineffective when it came into certain aspects of fighting. And it's because they don't know for real. And they've never pushed it, and they've never tried it, and they've never wanted to. And that's a fault, but at the same time, it's their belief. And much like many people are going to probably come at you for what you believe and what things that you've said, it's your belief, man. There's no way in the world I'm going to be able to just don all this, say, here you go, you better believe what I believe. It's not going to work. Forcing anything down anyone's throat is not going to work. It's just you're going to have to believe what you believe. And I don't, like me personally, people take martial arts and they make it this religious experience and they do all this stuff with it and they fall into it in that sense, in that way. I don't see it that way. I never have. It's always been there for me to become physically, because I'm more interested in it as a physical activity as well as a way to become more, potentially a better fighter and also more effective to defend myself, protect myself. And I was also trying to train for the military at the time. And me personally, I wanted to be at a high level of effectiveness when it comes to tactics and strategies before I got in, and I wanted to be that way and it's just been this way forever. I've always wanted to be just better at learning, be a better fighter, a better warrior. And, people can fault me because I've never been in a cage fight. But what I used to do in my backyard with my friends and what we used to do all the time is basically harder than what they do in the cage, or just what they do in the cage now, except we didn't wear gloves. We didn't wear gear. We just threw each other on the ground and, held each other down. We had wrestlers, we had boxers. We just fought. Man, when you've been in street fights, you know what you've done. I've been there. I've done that. I don't need a competition to show me that I can do it. Now, I wouldn't mind doing it. I do think about it at times because I wouldn't mind, but I'm 38 years old. I'm an old man in that sport. I would hate to try to step in the ring with some of these 20-some-year-old guys who have been working at this for 5 years, 10 years. Even though I know I have years behind me as far as experience when it comes to certain things, they're going to have youth and being able to get up in the morning a lot less sore than I will be. Win or lose, I'm still going to get up probably in a whole lot worse shape than that person will be. And so it at times is intimidating because I have fought, I've trained fighters, I've sparred with my fighters, I've rolled with my fighters, and and the next day they're ready to bounce back and do their thing, and I was just a little bit rough, and that was like 4 years ago, man. That's when I was 34, 35 years old, So I was already feeling the effects. And, so it's like, but I could teach them better technique. They learned how to hit harder, kick harder. They learned how to maneuver. They knew how to do things differently than other people because I have a different background. So instead of seeing the fault in it, see the good things of it. These gyms could also be a place for people who are very rough and very unsculpted, but yet they came to a place that helps sculpt them and mold them and discipline them. Because no matter what you do, whether it's boxing, wrestling, whether it's martial arts, whether it's mixed martial arts, whether it's lifting weights, parkour, no matter what it is, gymnastics, it doesn't matter. If you have the dedication, if you're going to dedicate yourself to something, it takes discipline to get you there and to do the things that you're told. Because no matter what, you have a coach in all these things, you've got an instructor in all these things, and you have to be disciplined in your life to be able to accomplish the things that these guys accomplished. That's plain and simple. So, I mean, you can take this for what it's worth. Just don't look so down upon it. You don't want them to look so down on traditional arts, which a lot of guys don't. Don't get it wrong. A lot of these guys don't. Because a lot of it, that's their background. It's just they didn't see the effort. They didn't see the particular. They didn't see anything good coming out of it for them because it wasn't what they needed. You're getting what you needed. They didn't get what they needed. So, kind of look at it from that perspective. What did you want? You got it. What do they want? They got it. I mean, as a coach, it's very easy for me to help these guys out. I was on the phone with my fighters a lot of times, and sometimes it was in the middle of the night. So they need someone at times, and they need a place to go. They need a place to feel like this is the best thing, and you've got to be looking out for them. So it's the same thing as any dojo. And I can just tell you, there's shortcomings in the MMA gyms, and there's shortcomings in the traditional martial arts world. There's shortcomings in self-defense world. There's no one in any of those fields that there's not someone teaching some sort of bogus thing out there. Not only bogus, but just plain dumb things, or just not teaching anything quality because they really don't know anything as further than what they've been taught, and that might not be much. So take what this is worth. It's just me trying to help shed a different light on things and try to help you stay, instead of hating on something, maybe see a merit of it, because it only can help you, enhance you, and see what they do, and that's the only thing you do. Just become a better person through it, rather than trying to destroy someone to become a better person because you were able to you were able to demean it, because that's the thing you don't want done. So that's my biggest thing, guys. You guys leave comments below if you saw this response video, you like this, go ahead and click like, and also just leave your comments. I like talking to people about martial arts. I like talking to people about what you guys want to hear about next. We'll talk to you soon. Later.